everyone, it's your girl Brain Shanae, and today I'll be sharing with you a book review for one of my anticipated reads of the year, and that is Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. Hopefully I'm saying the author's name right. If not, I do apologize. But let's go ahead and get started with this book review. So within this book, we are following our main character, Kaikeyi. She is the daughter of a Raja and a Rani, and her mother is Kaikeyi. And as we're following this journey with Kaikeyi, we learn certain things about her and her family, and that since she is a girl and the firstborn, her father pretty much ignored her, and she was forsaken, and that's how she felt. But then beside that, she also has a twin brother named Judahit, and so they have this bond together, which I do love. And on top of that, she has 6 other brothers. So it was fascinating. And due to the fact that since she is, of course, she was firstborn, that does not mean that she gets to rule Kaikeyi, which is the kingdom that she lives in. So she's going to be married off, right? And then the person that will, be the next Raja after her father is gone will be her brother. So during this time, when she has her brothers along with her, they end up getting this news that her mother has been banished. They have no idea why, what happened, nothing. They just got this news and they're devastated, especially Kaikeyi. She loved her mother dearly. Her mother was teaching her how to be a lady, how to reading all these different scrolls and about magic and stuff. Her mother's very attentive to Kaikeyi. Also knowing that she is a girl and will one day be a woman in a man's world. So there is that. So she had some resentment toward her mother because her mother never officially said goodbye to her. She just left and that was it. And then the time came, so this is when she's like 12 or 13 years old. And then the time came when she had to be married and be betrothed or whatever. And this is when she's like 18 or 17. And she didn't want to have anything to do with marriage or anything like that. And then on top of that, she found a scroll that had a letter that was written by her mother, before she had left. And she felt her heart was more whole. She still had no idea what had happened to her mom, or if she was still living or she was dead, but she appreciated the letter when she found it. Especially it took a couple of years when she did end up finding the letter. So I think that definitely filled the hole that was in her heart because her mother had left unexpectedly. So now we're to the time where she is betrothed, and his name is Desirat, and she did not have anything on to do with him. She did not want to get married or nothing. She just wanted to stay and stay in Kaikeyi because that's where her mother was at, where her home was. That's the presence of her mom was with her. She did not want to leave the land that she grew up in. And to top that off, she was also learning skills to how to defend herself from her brother. Her brother taught her how to fight, how to defend herself, and that's not allowed. The men are not allowed to teach women how to defend themselves, how to fight. So she was very, how can I say this? I like the fact that she wanted to defend herself, especially during this time where men felt like, no, women don't have to protect themselves. That's what the men are for or whatever. She still was hungry. I'm going to say it again. She was hungry to learn herself how to fight and defend for her. She didn't, and pretty much that says she did not need no man to fight for her and to fight her battles. She wanted to do that on her own. And so hence why she didn't want to be married. She's like, why do I have to be married? Like, I can fend for myself. Like, what's the purpose of this? And, the main purpose is, to unite the kingdoms of henceforth the marriage. And she's like, okay, I'll make a deal with you, Desirat. I will marry you on one condition. And that is, okay, I marry you. But after I marry you, when I produce you a son, he is going to be the next Raja. He is going to be the heir to your kingdom. And mind you, she is going to be the third Rodney. He has 2 other wives. And their wives, they call them Rodneys in this culture, which I love this culture, by the way. It's so intriguing, and I just love it. So, knowing that she's going to be the third wife, and the only condition she can give him in order for her to marry him was for if she produces him a son, her son is going to be the next Raja. And she was going to be the head wife. So she wanted power, which I get it. She wanted to be, it's like chess. She wanted to be in the proper position at a specific time when she was going to marry Dasharat. And Kasora, Casidro. I forget what the country, her kingdom was going to be. Aida or something like that. I can't, it's not coming to mind right now, but it'll come to my mind later. But anyways, so that was the condition, and he said, okay, I agree to this. So they get married. So they go to the kingdom, Dasharat's kingdom, and she is the third Ratni. Or Rainy. Sorry if I'm not saying the word correctly. So she does this, and eventually they end up having kids, all three of the wives. And one of the wives ends up having twins. Then you have Kaikeyi, who has a son named Bharat. And then you have the other wives, her son is named Roma. But she considers all the wives' children her children as well. And I love that aspect as well, because usually you don't just in a different culture or anything like that. Well, no, I can't even say that. I think that even if the child is not biologically yours and they're still part of your life, and they're your husband's or your boyfriend's or whoever's children, you take on the role as their mother, depending on the, if the other woman, the mother of their children, the mother of children is comfortable with that, right? And of course they were in this book. And I love that about that. All the children that her husband had with all his other two wives, she considered them her own. So they were all her sons, and she treated them equally. She no favoritism, nothing. But to top that off, there is magic in this book. They're gods and goddesses, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to read the book in the first place, because of that aspect alone. And she has this ability of binding, where she has able to sense their emotions and their bindings of their ties together. If they connect and have a good relationship, or it's just a bad relationship. And, she senses their emotions in a sense, I would say. It's not very clear, but it's sort of obvious. Like when she talks to a person, she can feel their binding, and how they approach her, how they have feelings toward her. She can sense it, right? And I think a lot of women can sense that. Even when we don't have magical abilities, we can sense when someone doesn't or does like us. Like, we have that intuition. But anyways, so after all this, and she has her sons out of nowhere, and then you have, since they are sons, they are being taught by people with knowledge. And as her sons are being taught and they're growing up, she puts herself in a position where she is part of the council. That's also another deal that she had made with Dasharat. And the only way she was able to do that is because prior to the children and everything, she had fought with him side by side in a war. And women do not do that. And he was just amazed by her. And her husband wasn't an asshole. He was a complete gentleman. He treated his wives well. He treated Kaikeyi well. And so she never necessarily loved him, but she appreciated him and how his treatment towards her was well. He treated her well. He did not disrespect her or nothing. And so for saving his life during the war, knowing that, all these skills that she was able to do in the war was, her brothers, teaching her and how to defend herself, it came into good use. And so he gifted her 2 boons, which is promises or quests that she would make to him, and he would have to follow them because it's a boon. He would have to follow it regardless on how he felt or whatever, or what she said. But besides that, she didn't use her 2 boons, but she said that she wanted to be head of council, and he knew, and he's like, it is done. And I think the main part of this book that I loved was how she protected women, and she showed that women can be part of a council and can be having roles in general in politics. And I love this book so much, regarding that, because it was so powerful and it's so relevant even today. Women are able to have roles in politics and society and stuff like that. Now, you know, there are some men in the world that don't feel like women should be part of this and this and this, but whatever, right? It is what it is. Women have the ability to be part of something bigger than themselves, and they don't have to be just wives and bear heirs. They are more than that. And that's what I loved most about Kaikeyi, because she knew this, and she knew that women should have a say in matters as well. You know, they have voices. They can say, and should be able to express how they feel about certain things and certain situations. So just keep that all in mind. Like, Kaikeyi, she came to slay. Let's just say that. Like, she agreed to this marriage based on, you know, certain promises that had to be kept. And then on top of that, be part of the council. Like, she's a badass. Like, I loved it so much. And then to top that off, as she is raising her children, there also is a guy named Sage, who is very corrupt. And she did not like how he was teaching Rama about how women need to stay in their place. Their place is not to be on the council or nothing. Their only place is to be respectful to their men and to bear heirs and yada, yada, yada. And that's it. And Kaikeyi brought this up to Deshret, but he said, no, he's like the best. He's the best person to teach Rama and stuff like that and all that. And she's like, well, wait a minute. Do you remember what you agreed to prior to marrying me, right? That vow of, you know, of Bharat being the heir, you know, the next Raja, not Roma. And he said, yes, I know, but I still want to have my sons to have all the knowledge that they can get by the best teachers. So she's like, fine. She just brushes it aside. He brushes it aside, and she's like, okay, and then maybe everything will be fine. But next thing you know, he says that Rama is going to be the next heir. He's going to be the next Raja. And she's like, what do you mean? And then we come to find out that Roma is a god, and he has powers himself where he's able to manipulate how people think and how they approach certain people and how they feel. And so literally Deshret, he told Kaikeyi, like, hey, I'm stepping down. I think it's Rama's time to be the next. It's time for him to take his place and to become the Raja. And she's like, what do you mean? He's young. He's just a boy. He has no clue on how to rule a kingdom. And then of course she had, you know, the other wives, especially the wife that, you know, is the biological mother of Roma. She's like, you're just jealous and stuff like that. And no, it's not like that at all. And I know with Kaikeyi, she has you know, the wives, they have respect for Kaikeyi and what she has done, not only for herself, but also to the women and the roles that they play. So they respect her in a sense. But Roma's starting to get a big head. And then on top of that, and to top that off, he ends up marrying a girl named Sita. And he disrespects her. He hits her. And he has no idea why he hit her in the first place. He said, hey, I didn't mean to do that. And he's like, that's not like you, Roma. What are you talking about? And then come to find out, Sage was a horrible person. He's the main person that blamed his wife, supposedly, that cheated on him, even though one of the gods appeared to look like him. So she had no idea that she was cheating on her husband in the first place. And so he pretty much turned her into stone as punishment, even though it wasn't her fault. And so you have that as well. Like, they feel like women are the destruction of the world, and it's just crazy, right? So Roma has this mentality, and she's like, no, Roma, this is not you. So she had to make some choices. She had to make some really hard decisions. She found out that her mom was living, and that her mother had a daughter, had more children, and she felt like, wow, she felt betrayed. So a lot of stuff was happening at the same time with Kaikeyi, and she literally had to literally sit down and think about the decisions that she had to make, because she also went back to Kaikeyi, and saw her brother. And then to top that off, she mainly went along with her son Barrett to see his grandfather, because he was dying. So when her father passes away, then it comes to the point where her brother Judah said to her, like, okay, well, we heard that Deshret didn't keep his vow, his promise of having Barrett be the Raja. And so since he doesn't keep his promise, we have to go to war. And we do not want to show ourselves as being weak. So she's like, no, there doesn't need to be war. We don't need to do that. So she's thinking of ways in order for a war not to happen and for lives to be lost. So she used her boons to Deshret, saying, you have to proclaim Bharat as the heir or the next Raja and not Roma. And then the second boon she used is to exile Roma for 10 years. And Deshret, I think he felt ill and really sick because of the decisions. Like, he promised her these boons, and so he has to fulfill them. And literally after he fulfilled those boons, I feel like it sickened him. He was sick. And then, of course, he dies. And for the decision that Kaikeyi had to make, not only was Roma upset, but he understood because of the actions he made. Bharat resented her because Bharat didn't want to be Raja. He did not. He condemned his mom. And he pretty much said to his mother face to face that you are dead to me. And it's crazy. But Kaikeyi had to make those choices because a war was about to happen and about to break down. But then Bharat's not thinking, because these are still children. Roma and Bharat are still children, mind you, and don't know really how to think for themselves at this time, right? Bharat abdicates. And so the war still has to continue on, because since he's not the Raja, the heir anymore, since he abdicated, Kaikeyi's brother is on the way to the kingdom to start a war. So she meets him pretty much in the middle, saying, no, you need to stop this. You need to stop this. And then, of course, that's when, the war begins. And so she loses her brother. But then things start to come into realization that Bharat knew he was wrong. And so he said he will be the Raja until Roma returns. And now there is so much other stuff that's happening in this book, but I want to give you the gist of what it's about, because it's a lot. But I think what I appreciated about this book, of course, is the culture. It's taking down the patriarchy. Like, I love that. But from a mother's point of view, I can see why she loved her children dearly. And she didn't want to hurt Roma, but she had to make a choice. And even though that choice was hard to make, she still had to do it, and she had to live with it. Even with her son telling her that she's dead to him. But he does come into the realization that he really loves his mom and stuff like that. So I think it was just in that moment he resented his mother, and creating all this catastrophe and stuff like that, and making her look like the villain, even though she was the savior. She saved them, because for Roma not to be a Raja at that time, it meant something. Even the gods and goddesses brought it up, like, you did what was right, and the decision that you made was an excellent decision, because then Roma has a purpose, a higher purpose, and that's the reason why they didn't want Raja to be Roma, I keep saying Raja, Roma to be a Raja just yet. Roma had a purpose that he needs to fulfill before being a Raja. So everything comes into play, but I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The reason why I did that is because it was very slow in the beginning and then I reached like 70% of the book, and that's when it started getting more interesting, more impactful, more action, because it is a fantasy book. And I love this book. I think everyone should read this book. Everyone should pick it up, because it's really good, and it's heavy on culture and stuff like that, which I do love as well. This will definitely be another reread for me, because I do want to reread this and tab it up as well. But I appreciated this book. I appreciated the culture. I appreciated how it talks about how women are looked upon, and how women are able to do more than just sit around and have children and just, and raise children, right? Women are more than just that. We can do a whole lot more. So, you know, don't underestimate us, which I felt like a lot of people in this book underestimated Kaikeyi and her abilities. But like I said, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a great read. I love this book. If you have this on your TBR, I suggest you pick it up right now because it's brilliant. It's the writing is brilliant. I just loved everything about it. And like, even if I read the synopsis, which I'll do that right now, that way maybe this will bring you into even more to try to read this. But it says, I was born on the full moon under an auspicious constellation, the holiest of positions, much good it did me. So begins Kaikeyi's story. The only daughter of the kingdom of Kaikeyi, she is raised on tales of the gods, how they churn the vast ocean to obtain the nectar of immortality, how they vanquish evil and ensure the land of Barad prospers, and how they offer powerful boons to the worthy. Yet she watches as her father unceremoniously banishes her mother, listens as her own worth is reduced to the marriage alliance she can secure, and when she calls upon the gods for help, they never seem to hear. Desperate for independence, she turns to the text she once read with her mother and discovers a magic that is hers alone. With it, Kaikeyi transforms herself from an overlooked princess into a warrior, a diplomat, and most favored queen. But as the evil from her childhood stories threatens the cosmic order, the path she has forged clashes with the destiny the gods have chosen for her family. And Kaikeyi must decide if resistance is worth the destruction it will wreak and what legacy she intends to leave behind. And even with that synopsis alone, that's what reared me into wanting to read this book. And then after reading this book, my gosh, there's so much more going on in this book. So I highly suggest and I highly recommend Kaikeyi. Such a fantastic book. But that is it. That is my little book review for this beautiful book right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please, please, please give me a thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button and that bell to be notified when I upload more videos in the future. But thank you so much for watching, you guys. And please stay healthy and stay safe. See ya.